Hello and welcome. Another edition this week of Coach's Corner, where each and every week we're able to talk with college coaches from across the country, get some answers to questions that student athletes and families seek with regard to the overall college baseball experience. Want to remind everyone real quick, you know, hit that subscribe button. We're going to start to amp up here as we go forward throughout the summer and into the fall. Hit that notification button. It's quick, it's easy, and it allows you to know when a new video or podcast appear. Today, we are going to talk Sun Belt Conference. We are going to talk James Madison University. We are talking with two coaches. I really like this concept of having at least a couple coaches on from these programs, something we're going to try to do moving forward. And today we're talking with Travis Barzyk, the pitching coach at James Madison, and assistant coach Alex Rayburn from James Madison. Guys, thank you so much for taking some time to join us today.
Yeah, appreciate you having us
Thanks for
on.
having us.
Well, I'm excited because JMU is a program I've always watched, especially over the last few years, because year in and year out, very, very consistent, play a very aggressive schedule. And Travis, I'd like to start with you a little bit, and I'd like to talk about what makes James Madison. I know you've been at a couple of schools and you're now at JMU, but what drew you as a coach to James Madison, and what makes it special for families and student athletes?
Yeah, James Madison's special in a lot of ways because it's a high academic institution, but also high achieving in athletics across the board. I think if you look back at this season alone, you have every sport is at the top of the conference or making a push for NCAA tournaments and stuff like that, and it just shows you the commitment from the school, not only to be at the high end of academics, but also be at the high end of athletics with investment and support and stuff like that. I grew up in Northern Virginia, so I always kind of had a little bit of knowledge about JMU. But when you get there, it just speaks for itself. It's a beautiful campus. The people are incredible. The facilities are awesome. And there's always constant investment from like the community that really makes it special. And it makes sense why most sports, and if not all sports, can have that goal of winning, championships and even national championships. You see what football did in their transition from, just making it to the Division I level, and they're in a bowl in their second year, and it's like that across the board. So if you're really starting to pay attention to JMU, you realize like there ain't anything really bad about it other than the fact that people I think are a little scared how fast we're rising.
Well, I don't think there's any secret. Speaking of fast, and Alex, I know you and I touched on this a little bit. One thing I love about James Madison baseball, I think I watched like 3 or 4 series this year. Thank goodness to ESPN Plus. But you guys kind of play high velocity baseball. You run, you put balls on the ground, you're fast in the outfield, you're fast everywhere. Just talk a little bit about how you like to set up your roster and what makes your team a little in program a little bit different.
Right. Yeah. I think a lot of that goes to our hitting coach, Mike Roberts, who does a really good job with that. And I think we're all on the same page with recruiting as far as we want to recruit athletes. We want to recruit guys that can really defend. We want to recruit guys that can run. It's just kind of who we are. It's kind of like watching a track meet when you watch us play. We'll bunt and run, hit and run. Kind of with anybody too. Like we've got some draft guys in our lineup that'll do it. They bunt just as much as our other guys, but it's kind of just been the blueprint of what we think works. And we kind of want to try to expose teams that maybe don't prepare as much with the little things like picking up a bunt, throwing it to first. Defending first and thirds. We run a half stop all the time that it seems to always work. It's just kind of been the blueprint. And in the past couple of years, I think we've had a lot of success with it with Mike running the offense. And it goes back to recruiting, trying to get the right guys that fit what we do. So we're not really going after, the bigger home run kind of homer strikeout type guys. We kind of go after the athletes, the shortstops in high school that can play anywhere else. I think this past year our entire infield was high school shortstops. So that's just kind of when we're on the road what we're looking for. Not to say we wouldn't take a kid that can really really hit and maybe not be as fast or as athletic, but that's kind of when we're on the road, that's what we're looking for from a position player standpoint.
Travis, I want to talk to you a little bit about that. As Alex mentions about roster development and the recruiting, you have to have pitchers that are going to attack strike zones. You don't need guys that are going to nibble. When you're a team that likes to force the action, you need a pitching staff behind you that is going to have shutdown innings, lead outs, things of that nature. So when you're out recruiting over and above size and arm path and things like that, what are you looking for from the high school pitchers or the JUCO pitchers to be able to bring them into James Madison?
Yeah, it's really simple because I mean when you're thinking about a roster, you got to have an identity as a team, not just like one side of the ball. So I mean, if you're going to play plus defense, you got to have a pitching staff that can feed the defense along with getting punch outs. I know everybody right now is really high on metrics and stuff like that, but it's pretty simple for me. I'm looking for good athletes on the mound who can command three pitches in the zone. I mean, at the end of the day, if you can mix, a changeup, breaking ball, and fastball across the plate, you can get anyone in the country out. One of our best pitchers this year is a lefty who's, on a bad day, 85, 88, and on a good day, 88, 90. But he's got three plus pitches that he can put in any count. He can throw a changeup 3-1. He can throw a breaking ball 2-2. Keeps guys off balance. So it really feeds into that whole, like you talk about fast paced offense. We're trying to have a fast paced defense of forcing the issues. So, that was a really big goal of ours to set the foundation this year. And now when we're out recruiting, we're trying to find those type of guys. Like, velocity comes if you're athletic and you have a clean arm action. I'm a real big believer in that. I don't really look at the gun to make a decision. There's guys that I see that are like, 82, 83, but if the arm action's clean and they're commanding the ball and they're competitive, like I want that guy in my program. I'm going to trust our development at that point of adding strength and adding mobility or whatever we think we need from a physical standpoint to get them the velocity to be where they're at. And I mean, I think the more guys we get like that, you're going to see a deeper pitching staff.
Well, I want to get into the access for families and student athletes as far as getting onto a camp setting or possibly getting recruited by James Madison. Want to first let parents know that the Blue Book app is now online and available to be downloaded. This would be a good time for you to grab your phone, download the app, make sure that you allow coaches such as Alex and Travis to be able to find you via the Blue Book. Blue Book will also give you all of your information as it pertains to James Madison, location, campus side, majors, things like that. So go ahead and make sure that you download the Baseball Blue Book. Now, Alex, I would love for you to discuss, if possible, whether when you're recruiting, does age play a factor? Meaning, are you trying to get guys that are older, via the portal or the JUCO route? Are you really interested as a staff with kind of the development age groups, such as at the high school level? Where are you going during the summer to find potential fits for JMU?
Well, that's a good question. I think in the month of June is going to be more of portal for our staff, just because I think we have to fill some holes that we're going to lose from this past year. But I think it's a mixture of both. If you look at the College World Series, I think a lot of the guys or a lot of teams that are still playing are older. I think you kind of have to adjust to that and be older. But that being said, there's a lot of young talent that maybe plays or is on the bench that you do have to develop while you kind of have the portal guys that have kind of filled the holes that you need from the past year. But I think it's a mixture of both. But I think the guys that you want on the field are the guys that are older right now, just because the way that the portal has gone, and us being in a regional final last year, I think it helps us maybe go after some guys we couldn't have gotten in the past. But I think we lean towards older in June, and then in July. I was talking to Travis earlier before this. Getting a really good list of 2026 players that we think are, athletic and fit what we want to do, and guys that we can develop into players for us, whether that's their freshman year or sophomore year. But I think the portal is so important to kind of fill your needs quick, as well as JUCO kids. But to me, it seems like all the good teams now are older. But not to say we've totally neglected the high school kids, but those are the guys you kind of want to develop when they get in your program.
Well, and Travis, I know that you're aware of things that are going on within coaching changes throughout college baseball, especially this time of year. I would love for you to talk about, because you and I briefly touched on it before we came on, kind of following along with Alex there, the high school kid, and you kind of have to see the forest through the trees. You have to be able to
Yeah.
see whether it's a foot speed, and then the body will develop, arm path, the velocity will come, the ball strike skills, the power will come. I think we are so much in a data driven world that sometimes we fail to be able to see, boy, oh boy, in 2 years, this guy's going to be 30 pounds
Yeah.
heavier. He's going to be a dude. So, can you talk a little bit about that? When you're at a camp, for instance, whether it's a JMU camp or you're out at a potential showcase, how you're able to look at some of those younger players and project them forward.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think you're spot on. I think that sometimes, especially in today's modern game, like we're being trained to look for the metrics, and these kids are being trained to play to the metrics a
Right.
little too much. I mean, at the end of the day, like I always make the joke, no one cares about the spin rate on your fastball if it goes 450 feet over the wall. Like it's not something that anyone really talks about then. But to identify those guys, I mean, it comes down to this: is everybody has things they like. There's fits for guys across the nation of what they do, how they do it. There are programs that want, the high upside guys that just max effort blow cheese on the mound and guys that hit home runs. For us, we're trying to find those high school guys. Like we're trying to find guys that fit what we like, and so really and truly, I try to keep it as simple as possible. Do they throw strikes? Do they like to compete? And are they athletic? If you're athletic and you can move, that means there's room for growth. I mean, I think the days of like projecting guys have gone less and less because you don't have to as much with the portal. You can say, "Oh, I don't need to project that guy. He batted 350 in college. I'll just take him and plug him in." But even those guys, you still have to develop them. They still have to fit what you do. So I think one thing that we do a good job with it within our program is we're not just taking any guy out of the portal and we're not just going to take any high school guy. We're going to take guys that do what we're trying to do as a team. So if defense is a priority of our team, I don't care if a kid hits 20 home runs. Like he doesn't fit. Okay, maybe you can have one guy or two guys like that for a DH or a bat off the bench. But in general, you got to be able to run. You got to be able to hit. Pitching wise, if you struggle with command and you throw 96, you won't pitch because we also put a high emphasis on holding runners. I think that's one thing that kind of gets overlooked this year is we had an unbelievable backstop in Jason Schiavone, who's our catcher, who I think will be a shame if he doesn't get his chance. We all are optimistic he'll get a chance in the draft. If he doesn't, he's got another year, but he's one of the best catch and throw guys. If you look at the numbers before, I mean, people were still stealing because there was a lack of emphasis on holding runners. Well, this year, I think we had less attempts than they did stolen bases or something like that. It's something crazy along those lines. So every facet of the game matters to me when it comes to recruiting a pitcher. So if you talk about camps, well, how many kids do you see at camp that pick off when there's a good runner on first? How many kids at camp do you see, that can actually get off the mound and field a bunt? It's easy to sit there with a radar gun and be like, oh, he's 90, like I'll recruit him. But there's a lot of guys that I'll see that are 90 that I don't want because if it's spray and pray around the zone and there's not really any athleticism to hold a runner, like, well, guess what? In the eighth inning with a man on first and nobody out, if you can't hold a runner or field your position, you might as well put that guy on second or third. And at the end of the day, that's putting your team at a disadvantage. So I think that's where we're trying to separate ourselves a little bit from the recruiting side of things is not trying to recreate the wheel, but almost take it back a little bit to like, hey, what wins baseball games? And for us, what wins baseball games on the mound, I can speak to is strikes always win. Yes, you want to have good stuff, but holding runners, feeling your position, playing baseball wins. And I think that in some ways, and it's not necessarily the student athlete's fault sometimes, it's just sometimes they get caught up in this, showcase world of, hey, you don't practice, you show up to a game, you're meeting guys for the first time. It's like you lose a game 1-0, but if you hit that, if you were 2 for 2 or whatever, you're just like, hey, I wonder if anyone's seeing me. I think we got to try and find a way to bring back the competitiveness of everything. And that's the hard part for us is like truly finding guys that just love playing baseball and want to get better and then fit what we do.
Do you think if we look at today's college model, whether it has to do with the portal or not, and I'll let either one of you guys answer this. But it seems like a lot of college programs, at least with some of the younger guys, are foregoing sending them out to the summer leagues, collegiate summer league, and kind of staying in the weight room or working with the coaching
Yep.
staff, whether it's on pickoff moves, fielding bunts, getting more individual reps at short, etc. Do you think we're kind of reaching a part where it's going to trickle its way down to the high school levels, where you're going to see not as many people go out to travel, may stay local with Legion Baseball or Babe Ruth, and kind of get in the weight room and do more skill set development as well as strength development? You guys see anything to that as far as moving forward?
I'll start. I know Rayburn's probably got some things on this too, but I mean, I can start from the pitching side of things. Like we didn't send many guys out to pitch this summer. The guys we did send are older who need to get innings. Other than that, our younger guys, I mean, you're spot on. They need to get stronger. They need to develop some things, and that's the best time to do it. We'll take our rest time in the summer for our arms sometimes as well, just because that allows us more time to develop in the fall. We're not shutting guys down or they haven't thrown 100+ innings. Most of our incoming freshmen I have shut down because of their workload from last summer, fall, and spring. I got some guys that threw over 100 innings in that span of the time. So it is that. I don't think you're going to see it as much at the high school level because it is such a high recruiting time. I think you'll see it more from when guys are committed and coaches like us will shut them down afterwards. Just because, especially these younger guys, they want to get recruited, and the best way to get recruited is to get seen. Well, we're on the road all summer, so I don't necessarily forecast that slowing down as much as I do once you get to college. Summer ball is, I mean, we kind of joked about it the other day. Summer ball is kind of becoming like the portal games, where hey, if you didn't play, you got to go play summer ball, and if you're going to stay at your school, well, then we're developing. So you are seeing a little bit of a shift in that. And for us, I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing. I think that giving guys that are in college time to develop and actually giving them a plan to develop is what we're trying to do to prevent guys from going into the portal. It's like, hey, like, yeah, I can think of a couple freshmen that didn't pitch a lot this year. Here's what we need to do. You're close. We're still working with them throughout the season. One kid, he's skinny and he needs to get stronger. We have another kid who needs to maybe lose a couple pounds of, like, to firm up, bring back his athleticism. But we're actually giving more development specific plans in the summertime rather than, hey, go play summer ball, try to get better. We'll see you next fall. So I do think that's very beneficial from the pitching side of things. And then, yeah, like I said, I mean that the summer ball in college is turning into the portal games. So it's like that.
I will tell you, I just wrote down spray and pray in portal games. I'm using those in my lingo over the next few weeks. So, Alex,
There you go.
I would love for you to share. We talk about these at nauseum when I talk to families, whether it's through direct messages or phone calls, etc. P5, P4, Power 5, professional division, all these blah blah blah. The Sun Belt Conference. I always tell parents the two most under the radar conferences are the CAA and the Sun Belt. Like those two conferences kind of lay in the weeds. But then when the regionals come and somebody looks into what their seeds are and they see a JMU or a Coastal or one of those types of Sun Belt schools, they get a little nervous. Talk a little bit about the Sun Belt Conference as a whole, as far as the strength, top to bottom.
Yeah, so I just spent my second year in the Sun Belt, and coming in, I knew it was a good league, but it's far exceeded all the expectations I've had for it. There's going to be first rounders, draft guys, pro guys of all sorts. I think this past year we had 4 teams in the NCAA tournament, and all 4 made a regional final. Don't quote me, but I think that's the first time in Sun Belt history that that's happened. So you're telling me there's 4 teams in our league that were basically 3 wins from Omaha, which is if you think about it, is not that far. And then the teams that didn't get in, like Troy, when we went down to Troy, it was like a bloodbath weekend. Those guys were so good, and they didn't even get a bid. I think our staff thought they were deserving, but you run out on a Friday night in the Sun Belt and you're getting 94 to 96 with guys who can command off speed. So it prepares you for the regionals, and I think that's part of the reason we showed so well when we played South Carolina and NC State, and was able to beat South Carolina and play NC State really close, who's in Omaha now. But the league is so good, and like Travis said earlier, it goes from the third place team is a game ahead of like the eighth place team, so you can really flip a coin, and it really comes down to those last 2-3 weekends, and if you play well, you put yourself in a position to have success. And even Georgia Southern, like, we swept them during the regular season, then we opened up with them in the conference tournament, and they pretty much had their way with us for two games. We lost to them, the first game, and then came back and lost to them again. And they weren't an NCAA tournament team, so I think the depth of the league is what is so impressive to me. And they got guys that at the back end of the pin who can really pitch. So the stuff and the talent is there, and I can't say enough good things about how good our league is. In my opinion, it's a Power Five league. You just might not have, like, the football crowds that you get in the Big Ten or the ACC or the SEC, but from my opinion, it's a Power Five league from top to bottom.
So on that note, Travis, if you could kind of, for parents' perspective, a lot of times parents will, after they watch or listen to one of the Coaching Corner episodes, they'll always say, "Man, those guys were amazing. Do you think I'd have a chance?" Or how would you like families, or more importantly, student athletes, to contact you with regard to potential for camps or sending a schedule or things that, how are they going to get on your radar as a staff?
Yeah, I mean, we're pretty accessible as a staff from, email, and honestly in today's world, direct message on Twitter. I mean, we're constantly, hey, we're hip, we're in, right? We're trying to keep up with the times, adapt or die type thing, But really and truly, if they're interested in camps, I mean, we do run our fair share of camps throughout the summer. Schedules is really important. I think a lot of times when you get an introductory email or text, you don't have to go too deep into like detail of, hey, like, I don't need your whole life story. I need to know there's a couple things I'm looking for and I know we're looking for. Are you interested? Yes. What do you see yourself as? And then what's your schedule? Because if there's interest in video, always attach some video with whatever you're doing, because I could send you an email right now and say that I'm all this and all that, but if you don't actually have visual to see it, it makes it tough to, like, one, make it credible. So I mean, email is really good, and then, like I said, direct message on Twitter is almost even better these days because our phones are always attached to us, and it's as easy as pulling it up. Um, but I would always attach a schedule, and your coach's name, like who you play for that actually has seen you play a bunch, because we try to do it right. I mean, obviously there are times that the recruiting process does get sped up or slowed down, but in general, a lot of times we're gonna have to call your coach to see what they think too, just because they see you play so much, and not just travel ball coaches, high school coaches too. I actually like sometimes talking to high school coaches a little bit more because they're a little bit more honest at times. Nothing against travel ball coaches. I love travel ball coaches, but you know, in high school it's about winning. It's about trying to get a championship and win. So I think sometimes high school coaches see a different side of the student athlete than maybe they do in the summertime, where yeah, they want to win, but it's not the end of the world if they don't. Sometimes is kind of the mentality. So I think that if I was to summarize all that spiel is, email or Twitter, and if you're of age that we can contact you, attach your phone number to where we have that, and then give us a couple of reference contacts, travel ball coach, high school coach, and a schedule and video. If you do those things, now we're all of a sudden we have enough information to be able to sift through and go, and then we can put you on our list to see. We can share our camp link with you, of like, hey, we'd love to see you at this camp. Where at our camps, basically, our whole staff is there evaluating. We had one recently where two 26s hopped up, and now we're on our board to see, and we're gonna go see them, here soon. Like, we didn't have really a previous like notion about them, but they showed up. They fit what we do, and we're excited about them now. That's how it works, and that's what makes this the fun part of the process.
Well, I want to reiterate a point that Coach Burke just made, and that is that the phones are attached to the hip. And so, what I want you to understand as parents and student athletes, you want to make sure, going back to the Blue Book app, the baseball Blue Book's been around for over 100 years. Now it's just brought in with technology and the App Store and so forth. But with the Blue Book, it's going to allow you to post your videos. It's going to allow your schedules, all your analytics, all your metrics, your contact information, email, social media profiles, and things of that nature. And you're going to be able to find these coaches, and the coaches can find you all in one place. And it's kind of like the LinkedIn for baseball. Anything and everything that has to do with baseball is going to be in the Blue Book. So go ahead, put your stuff, your profile, download it, add your profile. It's free, and allow coaches like Coach Rayburn and Coach Farrick to be able to find you in hopes of being a potential student athlete at James Madison. Guys, I want to say thank you and best of luck. I really appreciate this. Is a school I've been really anxious and wanting to get on. And best of luck, not only this summer, but beyond. And hopefully you don't lose too many guys to the draft coming up.
Well, I hope we do.
Amen.
I hope they get their chance, But thanks for having us on, man. It's been fun.
You're very,
And thanks for
very
having us.
Alex, thank you so much. And I want to let parents know, really take a deeper dive into James Madison. And as Travis alluded to right out of the beginning, all of the sports at James Madison, they have a tremendous fan base. They play at an extremely high level, and it's a beautiful campus, one that you may not be familiar with if you're probably from the Midwest or maybe the Southeast. But it's time to start taking a look at a lot of these schools that may be outside your geographical area that provide both an elite academic and academic experience, such as James Madison. Have a great week in baseball, and we'll see you next week.